Hi, second grade. How's everyone doing? Good. Awesome. Awesome. I'm so excited to be spending another week of math with you all. Right? I know. I hope you all had a long, fun weekend. I spent the weekend moving to my new place in Boston. So I know I'm a little sad I'm so far away from you all, but I'm very excited to be in this new city and to keep teaching math to you all from here. So yeah, I'm feeling good. Hope you all are too. Now let's remember that, it's been a long weekend, but during these videos that we're being quiet, right? So that we can learn and so that all your classmates can learn too, right? And I would love your participation if you're raising your hands or, if I ask for answers that you're participating in that way. Let's make sure that you're following along in your workbooks as well. All right. Because the best way to learn is through participation and through careful listening. And remember, even though I'm a little farther, I can still hear you and I can still see you, right? So make sure that we're being good students so that we can all learn together. Okay, we're going to start with our counting ups and downs. So remember, thumbs up means that we're going to count up. Thumbs down means that we're going to count down or count backwards. Okay, and we're going to count up by tens like we did last week. Remember, 10, 20, 30, and then today we're going to start at 80. So I would love to hear all of your participation today. Okay, so let's start at 80, 90. Next is 100. Get back to 90, then 100. Okay, next is 110, 120, 130, 120. So it's just like counting by 10 again, but with 100 in front. 130, 140, 150, 160, 150, 160, 170, 180, 170, 180, 190. I don't know what comes next. 200. Awesome. 210. 200. 210. 220. And last one, 230. Good work. Good work, right? So when we get to 90, next one is 100. When we get to 190, next one is 200, right? And we keep going that way. So we go all the way up our 200s to 290. And next is 300. Perfect, right? And we'll keep practicing that together. Today, we're going to talk about some very old mathematicians. A mathematician is someone who studies math. Okay. Has anyone seen any of these pictures before? Raise your hands if you've seen anything like this. Yeah, so maybe you've seen the pyramids before or some mummies, right? A little bit scary, but we've got some mummies. These things, right, come from a group of people called the Egyptians. Now, Egypt is a country today, but they're a really, really, really old country, right? Thousands and thousands of years old. And these pyramids were built a super long time ago, right? Back when they had these kings called pharaohs. And the Egyptians, right, as you can imagine, as someone who built these giant, giant pyramids without any big machines, they were really smart and they needed the help of some math in order to build these pyramids and things like that, right? Egypt is the country that's in Africa over here, right, next to the United States. So they, in order to use math, right, they had different tools, just like we have our rulers, right? They had different tools. And just like we have numbers, they had a different system of writing or different language called Hieroglyphic. A hieroglyphic is a symbol or it's a drawing that means a word, right? So it's super cool. They were communicating by drawing pictures. Now, what does this look like? I want you to think silently for a minute. What does this hieroglyphic or drawing look like? There's some ideas. Yeah. What are some of them? Yes. What's your idea? Okay, interesting. How about yours? Definitely. And one more idea. Cool, right? So it might say look like an airplane. It might look like an arm, right? You can kind of see it looks like an arm almost, right? With the hand like this. So this is called a cubit. So this was one drawing that told us about a length, just like we have 1 meter or 10 centimeters or 1 centimeter, right? They use drawings to communicate that. So as this Egyptian drawing shows, a cubit was the length of an arm. So in order to measure things, right, they didn't have rulers, but they all had arms. So they would say, oh, we need 1 arm length or 1 cubit length of a brick or a block, right? Or some food. They would also use 1 palm, right? So a palm is the length in between your 4 fingers, not your thumb, but your 4 fingers. This was 1 palm. Just like this. I want you to all have your finger out or your hand out and see the length of your palm. And now each finger was 1 digit, right? So it's very similar to how we have 1 meter, 10 centimeters, and 1 centimeter. They had 1 cubit, the whole arm, 1 palm, and 1 digit as different lengths or systems of measuring. Okay. So today we're going to take a break from our centimeters and work with the same tools that these Egyptians used. How cool is that? We're going to be measuring things the same exact way the people who made the pyramids measured things. I think that's super cool. I hope you do too, right? Because I wish I had a chance to do this when I was in 2nd grade. So let's all open up our workbooks to page 55. And we're gonna see how long some of the things around the room are, not using a ruler, but using our palm, our digit, or our arm, our cubit. Okay, so open up your books to page 55, and it should look like this. Okay. So number 1, it says measure with a friend. I'm going to be your friend today. Okay. So instead of my friend, you can just write Mr. Sachin. And you can all measure with me. Now, first thing you're going to do is see how many palms make 1 cubit. How many palms make 1 cubit? So here's how you can measure that out. So I want you to put your arm on your desk. Okay. And your cubit is going to go from your elbow all the way to your longest finger. And now your palm, remember, is just the 4 fingers close together like this. And so you're going to take your palm and measure it from the elbow. Okay, so that's 1. And then I'm going to move over to the exact spot that my pinky ended. Okay, and then I want you to count how many palms it takes for you to get to the very end. Not just to your hand, but to the very end. And I want you to be very careful when you're measuring, right? Because if you do this, it's going to be too many, right? So make sure that your pointing finger goes to where your pinky ends, right? So it ends right here. You can also flip it over like this, right? That could be one way to do that as well. but using different ways, I want you to measure how long how many palms make one cubit. Okay. And you're going to write your number here. For me, I'm going to measure right now while you all measure. For me, it was 7 palms to make one cubit. But we have different size palms and arms, so it might be a little bit different for you. So let's make sure that you write down your number here. Maybe it's 5 or 6. Maybe it's more than 7, right? Okay. Next, we're going to see how many digits, right, make one palm. This one's pretty easy, right? I have 1 digit, 2 digit, 3 digit, 4 digits, right? Because we all have 4 fingers here, and our 4 fingers makes one palm. So I think for us, it's always going to be 4 digits. Right? I'm not sure about how many palms make one cubit, but everyone alive, right? 4 digit is always going to make one palm. Okay. Now that we're done with that, and make sure you write my numbers down too, because I'm your friend today. We're going to see how long your desk is. Now, you're going to measure your desk in 2 different ways. You're going to measure your desk in cubits and in palms, right? So when you do that, I want you to put your elbow, right, at the very edge of your desk. And then your next elbow is going to go right where your finger ended. And now my desk is a little bit longer, so it takes about almost 2 or 3 cubits. Okay, so you're going to write your number down for the cubits or how many arms it takes. Then you're going to do the same thing with your palms. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're going to keep going until you get to the end of your desk to find out how many cubits and how many palms measured your desk. So I'm going to give you some time to do that. Now, my desk was a little bit longer, so I had 2 cubits for my desk, or 14 palms. But even though the numbers are the same, right? Did you measure the same desk 2 times? Yeah, we did, right? So you can see that even though the numbers are different, the length, right, of your desk is the exact same. So just like when we're using 10 centimeters or meter sticks to measure, the numbers might look a little bit different, but the length of the thing we're measuring is not changing. Okay, so now I want you to turn the page to page 57. Page 57. Okay, and you're going to get a chance to explore around the room again, measuring things with both cubits and with palms. Okay, so here's a couple ideas of things you could measure: a bookshelf, your desk, a window, a door, right? And there's a couple more spaces. All right, so maybe you can measure the whiteboard, maybe you can measure the TV. All right, maybe you can measure one of the cubbies outside where you put your bags. All great options for you to measure. And make sure that you're measuring each thing 2 times, 1 time with cubits and 1 time with palms. Now, when you go about this activity on page 57, let's make sure that we're being really polite, right? We don't want to push people out of the way if they're very carefully measuring, right? That's not a very nice thing to do. So let's make sure that we're taking our turns. There's a lot of things around your classroom. Look around. There's so many things you can measure, right? So if your friend is already measuring it, maybe you can go measure something else first and then come back to that later. Let's also make sure that we're staying on task, right? Because if we're all working hard, right, and someone is playing around, It's not fair if they take, 20 minutes to do this when everyone else is already done because they were working hard. So let's make sure that we're staying on task. We're not taking this time to play or to bump into people or talk about things that aren't math. Okay, because that's going to make me and your other teachers a little bit disappointed, a little bit sad. Okay. But I hope this is fun, but also a chance for us to learn and experience how Egyptians, right, measure things with their arms and palms. It's super cool. So let's do that for about 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll all come back to our seats for our exit ticket. And now that we're all back in our seat, I hope you had a great time measuring the different things using both your cubits and your palms. Right, super cool activity. I wish I could have been there to do that with you all. Let's turn to page. Let's turn to page 58. Okay, question number 7, 58. Okay, for this one, you're measuring a car, right? So think about maybe your mom or dad's car or a car that you see during dismissal, right? It's pretty big, right? And now think about if you measured the car using both cubits, your arm, and palms, your hand. Pretend, right? Maybe you can close your eyes and think about for a moment what that would feel like, what that would look like to measure a car in these two different ways. Okay, you imagined it, second grade? Nice, good, 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 because I'm imagining it too. Now, would it take more cubits, more arms, or more palms? So maybe you can imagine yourself measuring it again. Would you have to use your arm more times or your palm more times? Okay, you think you have an answer? Good. So then you're going to circle only one of these two sentences. The first sentence says it will take more cubits than palms to measure the length of a car. So more cubits, more arms. Second sentence says it will take more palms than cubits to measure the length of a car. So more palms. Think for a moment, which one is it going to take more of? And circle that sentence. More arms, more cubits, or more palms? And give me a thumbs up if you're ready. Okay, thank you, thank you. Starting to see some thumbs up. Nice, right? More arms is the first sentence, more palms is the second sentence. Okay, cool. Yeah, so you should have circled this second sentence, right? It'll take more palms. So let's look at an example of that, why that's true. Okay, so here I have the length of about 1 cubit showing on the TV, right? This is just one arm, 1 cubit, right? Let's see how many arms it takes, or palms it takes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Took 7 palms to measure, right? So it took way more palms than cubits because cubit is a bigger measurement. Same if we're thinking about meter sticks, right? It would be 1 meter stick or 10 of these little small 10-centimeter rulers to get the same 1 meter. So if you use a smaller tool, you need more of it. So keep that in mind as we work on our exit ticket. Okay. So it looks like we have a very fancy rug, like a carpet. And we see some cubit measurements and some palm measurements. So there's 3 questions here. One is how long is the rug in cubits? Now you're not going to use your own cubit, right? Because this paper is not big enough. Right? You're going to use the cubits that are shown here and the palms that are shown here. So how long is the rug in cubits? So how many arms did they need? And how long is the rug in palms? How many palms did they need? Now, make sure you count this carefully. Okay. The number 3 is to circle the true statement. Did it take more cubits than palms to measure the length of the rug? Or did it take more palms than cubits to measure the length of the rug? Circle only the one that is true. More arms or more palms in measuring this rug, okay? And it's going to be very similar to that question we just talked about. Make sure that you write your name on this. Make sure that we're staying in our seat and working quietly by ourselves. And if you do finish early, you can raise your hand and hand your paper in, right? And your teacher will have some additional work for you to try working on. Okay. So hope this was a fun lesson, super cool experience getting to measure in the same way as Egyptians, right? Something you can tell your siblings, something you can tell your parents about when you get home, right? Super fun. I really enjoyed it. I hope you did too. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day with afternoon prayer coming up shortly. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in another video tomorrow. Bye, second grade.